And joining us now, Laurel Broten, Ontario's Minister of Education and the MPP for Etobicoke Lakeshore. It's nice to have you back in this studio.
Thank you, Steve. With
that new title behind your name. Okay, you guys started rolling out full-day kindergarten back in fall of 2010. How's it going?
It's going great, Steve. And
I kind of thought you'd say that, but how about...
But you know what, it's going really well, because one of the things that we hear, and we recently had a chance to speak to many, many Ontarians, and what I heard most was, when is it coming to my school? Families are embracing it. Why are they embracing it? Because they know that it is a great program for their kids. It allows families to have a great structure in their life in terms of not, you know, half a day in childcare or half a day at school or every other day off. But most significantly than that, you just see the students blossom from the very beginning when they're just starting in JK all day to by Christmas holiday that first year, just how well they're doing. And it's a really exciting initiative for parents like myself who had children that went through it as well.
You got 6-year-old twins.
I do.
And they are...
in grade 1. In
grade 1 right now. And they went through something like this?
They went through not exactly the same program, because it's in the French system, but an all-day kindergarten program. And you know, so as Minister of Education, I see the statistics on how great it is for our kids in terms of setting them on that lifelong learning trajectory and getting them to love learning and literacy and numeracy skills. As a mom, I also saw how ready they were to learn and how much excitement and what a great foundation it's given them for grade 1.
Okay, let's remind everybody here, because for people who don't have kids, they may not be paying as much attention to this. The idea behind this, if I've got it right, is that it's supposed to be a kind of a seamless day, that you don't have to pick your kids up at 3 o'clock and schlep them somewhere else to, you know, disrupt their day. The theory being they're going to learn better if they're kind of in one continuous educational environment all day long with the same teachers and the same educational assistants and that kind of thing. However, we got to find out how seamless it really is, because one of the things we do here is that, you know, March break might not be included, or winter holidays might not be included, or a lot of places still don't have this. So how seamless are we so far, really?
Okay, so let's remember, we got this advice from early learning advisor Charles Pascal, Fraser Mustard, all of those individuals who said those early days of learning are so critical, and the literacy and numeracy skills, that to see success, we need to establish that foundation early. So the government committed to rolling out all-day kindergarten fully across the province by 2014. We are well on our way to that rollout, and we now have, you know, thousands of kids that go to all-day kindergarten. Maybe they get on the bus, maybe they get dropped off at school, maybe they go to childcare. So there's the day of school, and then there's the childcare, so that a family can have them go earlier in the morning, you know, maybe at 7:30 in the morning, and be picked up at 6. That childcare wraparound is delivered in a couple of different models across the province, some directly by the board and some contracted out to providers like the YWCA or others. But that consistency across the spectrum is certainly developing, and it's a key component. But certainly within the school hours day, let's remember that we are the first jurisdiction in North America to have all-day kindergarten in a play-based model.
But that's what we're hearing, is that the consistency is certainly, you know, and this is a multi-billion-dollar program, right? It's
absolutely,
expensive.
$1.5 billion by the time all-day kindergarten is fully rolled out. But that doesn't include that wraparound childcare.
But it's what we're hearing a bunch of things. Obviously, we tweeted the fact and put out on Facebook that you were going to be here, and people started to email us in their experiences. And one of the experiences we got from one of the, I think it was a teacher or an early childhood educator, I'm not sure which, I got 30 kids in my class. This is a government that promised smaller class sizes. This is not working with 30 kids in my class. You want to speak to that?
So let's talk about that. Yeah. So one of the reasons why we made a decision to roll it out year over year with different tranches and continual expansion up to 2014 is we're learning as we go. This has not been done. But the class size and the target ratio that we are working towards is 1 ECE and 1 teacher to 26 early childhood educator and 1 teacher to 26 children. So a 1:13 ratio. We aim in grade 1 to grade 3 to have less than 23 children per class. So, but that's with 1 adult. So we have an additional adult, and part of that is because of the play-based model, children work in smaller groupings, learning different programs. I've been visiting many all-day kindergartens in the past year, but even in fact this past week, because registrations are starting for next year. And this past week I was in one where I did a doctor play group with one. They checked out my broken bones, and then we read a story in another group. We did a little bit of math in another group. So it's a really hands-on learning environment and really fun for the kids. So
the 30 to 1 you'd acknowledge is too much.
Well, but it's never going to be 30 to 1. There's an early childhood educator in that class. The ratio is 1 child to 13, 1 adult to 13 children. One, you know,
right, so if there's 2 adults,
aiming,
there's 26 in the class, and we've got people saying, I've got more than 30 in mine. So it's higher than what you promised.
It can be a little bit higher because that's the average. And we work in partnership with the boards. We establish what our expectations are, and the boards, as you're going to talk about in your next segment, they make decisions locally based on the number of students in their classes, their local community. Mm-hmm. But we do expect them to live within our structures, and we certainly are aiming towards having 2 teacher and an early childhood educator for no more than 26 children.
Okay, let's talk money again, because the City of Toronto commissioned this paper on funding models, and they made a whole bunch of recommendations on this. And one of the things they said, I think 9 recommendations in all, but one of the biggies was, without a new funding model that adequately reflects the anticipated fee increases in childcare services, the viability in the immediate and longer term of childcare services across age groups will be severely undermined, not only in Toronto, but across the province. Do you agree with their conclusion?
So we know, again, making a historic change in our education system and taking those 4- and 5-year-olds, let's remember, before all-day kindergarten, many would have been in childcare at least part of the day, and now we are moving to a system by 2014 where they will be in school the entire day. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt in my mind, and I'm sure in any parent's mind, that needs us to transform childcare. So one of the changes that we did, I had the child care file when I was at the Ministry of Children and Youth Services, and we transferred that file to the Ministry of Education because it really is the beginning of the educational, for our children. Many parents, like myself, probably dropped their child off at childcare and said, this is your first day of school. It really is the beginning of formal learning. So we have to have a conversation about what does modern childcare look like when you take such a block of students out of the childcare mix and put them in school. And we're starting to have those conversations in the province.
It sounds like an acknowledgement that, you know what, you're right. The funding model isn't there in place, and there is some jeopardy going forward here, but we're working on it.
Yeah, well,
is that basically what you're saying?
No, we've made investments into the field, over $60 million in stabilization funding in acknowledgement of the change. For example, in a child care center, when you have younger children, what is your ratio of adults to children? We've been talking about mm-hmm. that. It certainly is more adults to younger children than when the kids are 4 and 5. And so it's a transition, and maybe the structure of the space of a child care center also needs to change. So we've put some resources out to assist with the stabilization. We're having conversations about what does modern child care look like, and how will we design a system in recognition of, by 2014, our aspiration and goal is to have all of our 4- and 5-year-olds in school all day long.
Okay, let me try one more thing on this, and that is, get comfortable. This takes a bit of setup here. Currently, the daycare system in Toronto, in fact, across the province, it's a bunch of different things, right? You've got not-for-profit, you've got for-profit, you've got some people operating daycares out of their own home. The fees collected from the care of older kids helps pay for the services for infant kids. Now, if all of those older kids end up in full-day kindergarten,
which is where we want them,
right, and the infant costs will presumably go up exponentially, you could conceivably see a number of needed child care centers close. And my question is, have you got your eye on this ball?
Absolutely, we have our eye on that ball. And for example, one of the things that we need to take a look at and have an understanding is how many childcare spaces will we need when all of the children who are 4- and 5-year-old have the opportunity to go to school all day long? Will families want more care for their child than maybe 8:30 getting on the bus and 4:30 coming home from school? Will they want the beginning and end? How will that fit into the mix? What are the models that you can develop going forward? As, for example, the Day Nurseries Act has the criteria about how many children per adult. Well, there's some different ways of maybe looking at it. Maybe the children could be grouped in terms of family groupings and have different ages.
Sorry to interrupt, but
so we are having that conversation. We did start it.
The assumption here is, though, is that this was rolled out with some unanticipated consequences, this being one of them.
You know, I would say not unanticipated consequences. You can't but change historically a system and take you know, hundreds of thousands of children out of childcare potentially and put them into all-day kindergarten, invest $1.5 billion in all-day kindergarten and not acknowledge that that is allowing families not to pay perhaps more than $6,000 or $7,000 per year for a childcare space. They're not in childcare anymore, they're in school. So of course it's a change. Is it an exciting one, and is it a great change for us to roll up our sleeves and figure out the answers to? Of course it is. And I look forward to having many more extensive conversations across the province. Now that I'm back at the Ministry of Education and have the childcare file back, I believe strongly in the importance of it. I too was a parent that looked for childcare and know how important and what a trusting relationship that is with childcare providers. So, you know, I want to hear from families, and we will find a pathway forward. I feel very confident about it.
Okay. In our last couple of minutes here, I got to take advantage of the fact that you're here to raise one more issue, which has been in the news a lot lately, and that is this issue of gay-straight alliances, as they are called in the public school system, and what the separate school system wants to call respecting differences clubs. And my question to you, I guess, is, are you satisfied that the separate school system is approaching this issue with the intensity that your government has placed on issues of, for example, anti-bullying and making sure kids who are gay are not getting teased and picked on regardless of what school they go to?
Well, I'll say a couple of things. One, Bill 13 is an amendment to the Education Act. So every school, whether it's French, English, Catholic, public, will adhere to that amendment. And I feel very confident that Catholic school boards will be able to operationalize the expectations of Bill 13 in the Catholic system.
What gives you that confidence?
Because I've seen it. I've traveled across the province and I've seen amazing support programs for students in our Catholic schools where they are having conversations about sexual orientation and gender identity and speaking about those issues, discussing anti-homophobia and the messages and campaigns along that front.
So they're disregarding their own catechism by doing that.
You know, I had a chance this morning to meet with the Ontario Catholic School Trustees Association and to understand the paper that they've put out respecting difference. And, you know, they are very firm in their continued support for Bill 13, and that they do see within Catholic education support groups and initiatives for students to make sure that all of our students are safe and accepted. Why are we doing this? Because 64% of gay, lesbian, transgendered, and queer students don't feel safe in school, and that is a reason all of us have to come together and see this happen in our schools. And I feel confident that we'll get Bill 13 passed with support of others in the legislature, and that will make a real impact in our schools.
Well, this is the key, because of course gay kids, you know, sometimes kill themselves because they're getting bullied in school. We don't want to see that happen anymore. But a lot of the language that one sees in the separate school board, it is argued, doesn't quite fit the bill. And by calling it a Respecting Differences Club, rather than calling it a gay-straight alliance, does it sound to you like the commitment is truly there?
You'd have to talk to OXTA about their paper. What I've said clearly is that you must support it. It is mandatory to support a group if a student asks for that group, and they have to be able to talk about issues that they might be facing as a gay student, as a lesbian student, or coming from a family with two moms or two dads. It's critical that they talk about those issues. That's the point of the group, Steve, and it is absolutely incumbent upon Catholic education system to support their students. And I know that Catholic teachers, OECTA is supporting us on Bill 13 and has spoken very clearly about
English Catholic Teachers Association.
Yeah, as well as many of the support workers. I was with CUPE on Saturday morning celebrating Bill 13 and the common cause for that, and I had so many Catholic support workers in schools, child and youth workers, who said, we do the right thing in our school. And I said, you know what, I know you do, and I want to support you to do that, and that's what Bill 13 is about. Okay.
Minister Broten, it's good of you to join us here at TVO tonight. Thanks for coming in for your inaugural appearance as Education Minister.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.